They didn't just show new gadgets this year, they quietly replaced the foundation of AI itself. By the end of this video, you'll understand why CES 2026 wasn't about phones, laptops, or even robots. It was about who controls intelligence at scale, and how fast that control is shifting. For decades, CES was a consumer show. Better screens, faster chips, smarter accessories. But this year, something felt off. Gamers walked the floor disappointed. Creators expected shiny upgrades, and found server racks instead. And buried inside keynote slides was a signal most people missed. AI has crossed a line, not from research to products, but from tools to infrastructure. This wasn't about models getting smarter. It was about entire AI factories coming online. Racks, networking, software, and autonomy stacks designed as one machine. And once infrastructure changes, everything built on top of it changes too. Here's the twist, yet this shift doesn't just affect big tech. It decides who can afford AI, who can train it, who can deploy it safely, and who can't. CES 2026 quietly answered that question. Let's break down what actually happened. CES used to be where the future arrived early, but in 2026 the future didn't arrive as a product. It arrived as plumbing. That may sound boring, until you realize plumbing decides who gets water and who doesn't. AI has reached a stage where the bottleneck isn't intelligence. It's compute, power, cooling, and data movement. That's why NVIDIA and AMD didn't talk about features. They talked about systems. Because when AI models scale, tiny inefficiencies explode into billion-dollar problems. A few extra milliseconds of latency? That's millions wasted at hyperscale. A poorly designed rack? That's megawatts burned for nothing. So CES 2026 mattered because it showed us this truth. AI progress is no longer driven by a single breakthrough. It's driven by how well the whole machine works together, and whoever masters that machine shapes the next decade of technology. At the center of CES 2026 were two competing philosophies. NVIDIA unveiled Vera Rubin, a fully integrated AI platform. Not just a GPU, not even just a rack. A complete vertically designed AI system. Chips, networking, interconnects, and software. All built to act as one. AMD responded with Helios, a rack designed around openness and modularity. Instead of forcing customers into a single ecosystem, Helios is built to slide into existing data centers using open standards. Same goal, very different strategies. This wasn't a spec war, it was a worldview clash. NVIDIA believes performance comes from total control. AMD believes adoption comes from flexibility, and both companies are responding to the same reality. AI training has moved from clusters to factories. Once AI becomes factory scale, switching costs explode, so whoever gets adopted now stays relevant later. That's why these announcements mattered far beyond CES headlines. Let's slow this down. Think of modern AI like a massive library. The model doesn't just need to read books, it needs to move books constantly. That's why memory bandwidth, networking, and interconnect matter as much as raw compute. NVIDIA's Rubin platform is built around that idea. Instead of treating GPUs, CPUs, and networking as separate components, Rubin treats them as one machine. Data flows through the system with fewer stops, less waiting, less wasted power. NVLink acts like a private highway between chips. Silicon photonics moves data using light instead of electricity, faster and cooler. DPUs offload networking tasks so GPUs can focus on math. This isn't magic, it's coordination. AMD's Helios approaches the same problem differently. Rather than a single tightly coupled system, Helios uses open rack standards, allowing data centers to mix and match hardware more easily. This lowers friction for hyperscalers, and friction is often the real enemy of adoption. Different designs, same destination. So what does this actually change? First, I see cloud AI. With denser racks and faster interconnects, training frontier models becomes cheaper per token. That means faster experimentation, more model iterations, lower marginal cost. Second, autonomy. NVIDIA introduced Alpamayo, an open, reasoning-based autonomy stack. Instead of hard-coded rules, vehicles reason through scenarios. According to NVIDIA, this accelerates progress toward Level 4 autonomy, a space previously dominated by only a few players. Third, developers. AMD's Ryzen. AI Halo brings serious AI compute to the edge. Local inference. local fine-tuning, less cloud dependency. For developers, this changes workflows. For students, it lowers the barrier to entry. For small companies, it shifts cost structures. AI stops being something you rent and starts being something you own. But power always cuts both ways. Cheaper, faster. AI means misuse scales too. Deepfakes become easier. Surveillance becomes cheaper. Automation accelerates faster than policy can react. There are also physical limits, power grids, cooling infrastructure, chip supply chains. These systems are fragile, and centralized failures cascade quickly. The counterbalance? Standards, audits, open ecosystems where possible. Both NVIDIA and AMD talk about responsibility. But responsibility isn't a slide, it's enforcement. As AI infrastructure spreads, the real question becomes who sets the rules and who enforces them. CES 2026 made one thing clear. AI's next breakthroughs won't come from a single model. They'll come from systems engineering. Expect more vertical integration, more modular standards, more hybrid cloud edge deployments. We may see a future where frontier AI is trained privately by many organizations, not just a few giants. That could decentralize power or fragment safety. Both futures are possible, and the choices made now, in racks, standards, and software, will decide which one we get. CES 2026 didn't feel flashy, it felt foundational, and foundations decide everything built on top. AI has moved from curiosity to capability to infrastructure, and once infrastructure locks in, change becomes expensive. So here's the question I'll leave you with. Do you want AI to be centralized, or shared, closed, or adaptable? Because the machines shown at CES 2026 are already shaping that answer. That's it for this one. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.